Hey guys, welcome back. Part 4 of the bike build. Today we're going to be putting on the derailleurs and the chain and the battery and getting the gears to shift. And then it's just a matter of hooking up the brakes and bleeding those, putting on the bar tape and the seat, and we'll have a complete bike. We'll see how much we can get done today. One thing I did have a little bit of a problem with, a little bit of a snag, literally. The other day I came over and tried to spin the cassette, and it didn't spin freely. And I looked a little closer, realized the cassette was rubbing against the inside of the frame. Then it dawned on me, this frame was not designed for a 12-speed group set, but we can make it work. You take a tiny little washer and you put on the inside of the dropout, between the dropout and the cassette, and it spaces the axle out just enough to give you clearance. Now, I don't recommend doing that too much, too wide of a spacer, because you lose threads for the axle into the dropout. I just used a really, really tiny washer, so it's just a little spacer, just to give you enough. You could sand down the paint on the frame. It's not that much of a difference, but I didn't want to damage the frame, so I chose to do it this way. And then I went ahead and put the derailleurs on. I haven't torqued them down yet. The wheels are torqued up and everything is good there, except there's maybe a little bit of play in the rear wheel and the rear axle, and I think that's coming from the top hat spacer on the non-drive side of the axle. That's just part of the Trifox hub, or whatever hub Trifox is using, and the precision isn't really there, the quality isn't there, but it spins freely, everything is fine, there's no rattling, it's just got the tiniest bit of side-to-side play, and I'd rather have that than binding. So the cassette spins fine. The wiring on the back, you just kind of have to be delicate with it, and you put this nice little clip that they provide on the back of the derailleur, and it holds the wire in place. The front just routes up under. It was really simple. Now I just connect the battery to the top, and they say to make sure to put one of the connections through the middle port so the battery can get, proper connection. Make sure you use a little tool that they provide. That's very handy, works really well. And then it also comes with these two little plastic halves, and I think those are to shroud the tips of the battery to keep it from, getting smashed in case it falls down to the bottom and damages your wires. So a little bit of electrical tape and maybe a little bit of old bar tape, and I'm going to jam that actually up into the seat post and hold it up there. I had a little bit of flex in the front end, I noticed. I came over and gave the handlebars to the rear wheel a bit of a twist, and I felt some play up here in the top of the headset and the stem area. So I went ahead and cut the steer tube a little bit shorter and took out one of the spacers. I think it was just too many spacers, and they're not exactly all machine perfect, these spacers, so each one is a little bit of a variable. So I took one out. It shouldn't affect the stack height too much. It just means the drops are going to be a little lower than what I have, but only by maybe 5-6 millimeters. So I think it'll be fine. It's a lot tighter now, feels stiffer, and it looks better. I went ahead and took out this little rubber gasket too. I'll keep it, but I don't think I'm going to run it because it just gets bound up in there and kind of squishes out to the sides, and it doesn't really work too well. So I don't know how good it is to even have it in there. I'm not going to run in the rain. I found some of this rubberized plastic that Trace Velo was talking about. I can actually trim it from this bag and not really hurt the bag because it's just an extra panel on the back. So I'll be doing that, and hopefully that will stop any seat slipping issues. Have you ever seen a rear derailleur that comes with so much paperwork? On second thought, I don't think I'm going to use this little shroud because that's actually a pretty sharp edge, and if that was to fall out of my seat post into my seat tube, that'll actually probably cut my wires. So I think I'm going to take that off, but I still will use a bit of bar tape around it to keep it up in my seat post. Make sure to put bar tape on both sides of the battery, so when it's up in there, it's not going to rattle back and forth and drive you crazy. Okay, right now the seat is at the minimum insertion height, and that's actually lower by about an inch, half inch, than where my current seat is from the ground measured. So I'm not sure if this is just a low slung top tube on this bike, but I'm thinking with the lower front end means I won't need as high of a rear end. So we'll hopefully run it at least a few millimeters below the minimum insertion height and see if that's sufficient. Okay, so I've inserted Trace Velo's little rubberized plastic. I put about 3/4 of it down into the seat tube first, and then I put the seat post in and slid it down, and most of it went in there. It was actually a pretty tight fit to begin with, so I didn't need that much. Really, I just cut off a little sliver of material, not that much. So again, grease the sliding surfaces, not the compression surfaces. So the parts that slide, you want to grease those, not the concave area or the convex area. Okay, the seat post clamp is on, and I trimmed the extra rubber plastic from the back with an X-Acto knife. So I have the bolt down pretty tight, not too tight, but there's no torque specifications, so I'm going to assume something like 6 Newton meters or something like that. No more than like 12 Newton meters like the crank bolts. So I think what we'll do next is we will adjust the front derailleur height and get that tightened down, and then we will install the chain. One note about the seat post, the design isn't the greatest, and the floating guts and the clamping system kind of make it hard to do all at once. I found the best way was to sand down the inside of the seat post with a little bit of sandpaper, and then put this on the ground upside down and do this upside down and get everything right where you want it, and then put it on the bike. So it's a little bit pitched forward right now, but I want to play with the seat height a little bit. It might go down a little bit more, I don't know. So for right now, we'll just leave it here. The derailleur is charging, and it's actually making a high-pitched whistling sound, very high decibel ringing sound when it's charging. So that's encouraging. Okay, we got gears that do the thing. Front and rear. Yep, doing the thing. So I've got it all registered through the app, thanks to GP Llama for his video on how to set this up. Real quick, took about 5 minutes. So now that I have the derailleur in the front over to the high position, I can put the chain on and we can continue on. All right, I just cut the chain using the old tried and true method of big to big and then adding 2 links. And when you do that, you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extra links on a 116 link 12-speed chain. And because this is a very thin chain, if you're using a really cheap chain tool, make sure you put a tiny little washer behind the chain so you don't put too much pressure on the plates. And yeah, we'll put the quick link on. Should be good to go. The chain is on. So I used the quick link and the old-fashioned method of putting a pedal on and stepping on the pedal to spread the chain, and that clicks it in place. You just got to put a lot of force down on the pedal. Okay, I think I'll wrap it up here today, guys, but that's a lot of progress made. The drivetrain is done. Everything spins, everything talks to each other. We are on to the brakes next episode, the bar tape, and some little accessories and final touches and test rides, and that should be it. So thanks for hanging out with me again. We will talk to you next time.